This is Appalling News. I'm Paul Chatto. In my continuous journey to find interesting stories, I found this woke test by IDR Labs online. Apparently, taking this, you will find out how woke you are. For many, woke recalls a simpler time when all it meant was to awaken to the plight of the less fortunate. But now, to others, it is a synonym for socialism. I took this test to find out how woke I was. The results are divided into the following criteria. Fighting power involves a critical understanding of societal structures, power dynamics, and the roots of oppression. For people who are woke, finding power entails resisting or negating the historical and ongoing impact of discrimination based on race, gender, sexual orientation, class, and other social categories. The first thing that popped into my head is that if you're spending your time on this, you'd better find a better use of your time. I think I can summarize this segment, this category, as stop living in the past. Stop projecting the past's issues onto today. Many of the things in this definition have been solved well enough that we can live, work together, and support each other. Next. Social justice translates into what those who are woke see as an active engagement in the struggle for social justice. So, social justice is not a goal, but the struggle, which we all knew. The woke are like pharmaceutical companies. They are not interested in a cure, only ongoing maintenance. Challenging norms entails uprooting or fighting what those who are woke see as the prevailing oppressive norms and assumptions that perpetuate injustice in society. But first, there has to be a meeting of the Central Planning Committee, and then a vote first by non-white members, and then by white members, where only 1/4 of their votes will count. Alternative knowledge denotes an ongoing process of learning and engagement with what those who are woke see as marginalized lived experiences and ways of knowing. Well, I've had lived experiences with people with marginalized intelligence, and that was my way of knowing. Intersectional solidarity entails what those who are woke see as fostering empathy towards marginalized groups. This assumes that those of us who do not identify as woke do not have empathy towards marginalized groups. We just choose not to make our self-worth based on being victim adjacent. Empowering underdogs. Yes, stop telling them that people who can employ them are bad. Global citizenship. I believe I was born on this planet. I have a Visa card. Climate sustainability. I won't read this because it's just more self-flagellation without any specifics. It's a complex topic that is convincingly argued in only 76 words here. I'm getting the feeling the questions are going to be quite loaded. Let's go. Here we are, the woke test. We're going to do this together. This is the first time I have seen this test, and I'm sure the questions will be loaded, but we'll work them through together. Woke is a slang term that refers to one of the most prominent social movements in contemporary society. Its proponents see themselves as actively involved in the fight against social injustice and discrimination, while non-woke people tend to see them as hysterical or misguided. I think both of those definitions are accurate. Okay, let's get started. Question 1. I believe that given the same socioeconomic conditions, all groups of people would have the same average IQ. That is incorrect. We know that to be a fact. I believe that other cultures and minorities may have ways of looking at physics and mathematics that are just as valid as the Western way. Mathematics and physics is not a Western thing. Obviously, that's an easy one to answer. No. I have considered not having children out of a concern for the climate. Too late. The conception that a real man is tough and daring should be replaced by the conception that a real man is caring and compassionate. Well, this is one of the loaded questions I was expecting. Why can't a man be both? But since I'm caring and compassionate and not particularly tough, I'm going to click on daring. Your mileage may vary out there. Using brain imaging or genomic sequencing to legitimize race or gender stereotypes can never be scientifically justified. I agree. We should never use those tools to legitimize race or gender stereotype. I agree. That's eugenics, I believe, unless I got the question wrong. So-called free markets are inherently coded to favor white men. Absolutely. And more the better. No, of course not. That's stupid. A welcoming immigration policy is a moral imperative, as all nations have a responsibility to protect those seeking refuge and opportunity. Well, if you come in the right way and sign the right papers, then I can't disagree with that at all. We are all citizens of the world and should all be allowed to live where we want to create a more just and equitable world. Disagree. Women and minorities cannot truly be themselves while they live in a society run by white men. Well, I would put it to you that the reason they can truly live and be themselves in society is because of white men. So disagree, at least here in North America. In this day and age, the patriarchy is largely a myth. Yes, it is a myth. The climate has always been changing. What we are going through now is just another natural cycle. Well, yes, it seems that it is another natural cycle, but not just another natural cycle. So I'm going to go on the side of agree, even though I think we could be better stewards of this planet. Anybody who is not white, again, white people, anybody who is not a white male is, in some sense, oppressed in our society. I think we're at the point where you choose to be oppressed and you choose not to be oppressed. So I'm disagreeing with that. In general, all Indigenous ways of knowing are marred by subjectivity and bias, lacking objectivity and evidence. So this conflates objectivity and evidence with ways of knowing. So no, ways of knowing is subjective. So I will disagree. Assuming that all women have vaginas, okay, I didn't expect that, is just another way of perpetuating oppressive stereotypes. All women have vaginas. Only women have vaginas. So disagree. Did I get that right? Assuming that is what perpetuate. Disagree. Next. There are only two genders. Agreed. That was a tough one. Not a day goes by without me thinking of how I can fight for a more just and equitable society. I don't think about it all the time, so I will disagree with that. I got other things to think about, like putting stuff on this channel. As society as a whole gets more wealthy, wealth will eventually trickle down from the rich to the poor, even in a capitalist economy. Disagree. We know that that does not work. Traditional gender roles are largely determined by natural evolution and/or a higher power. Disagree.
We interrupt this video because while editing this part, I didn't realize how stupid this question was. It's actually impossible to answer this properly. Firstly, what does traditional gender roles mean? Secondly, why largely determined? Forced assumption. Thirdly, mashing natural evolution and higher power together. First off, natural and evolution are redundant. By higher power, do they mean God, as in religion? North American indigenous people had very different gender roles than the Europeans. My answer is irrelevant.
I believe that unless something is done, the climate crisis could be completely out of control in 5 years. Well, this is a loaded question, in that 5 years is not enough time for us to affect any kind of change. So I would have to disagree, only because this question doesn't make any sense. Not that I don't believe that we should be doing something about it. We should welcome those who want to come here if we want to create a world where everyone has an opportunity to reach their full potential. Yes, we should welcome everyone who wants here and is
qualified to contribute and wants to contribute and wants to be a good member of society. Hierarchies are necessary to maintain order and prevent anarchy. Well, that's the simplest way to deal with it. So I have to agree. People of color are oppressed by white beauty standards in our society. That's ridiculous. Black society have their own beauty standards, and I don't think they're much affected by ours. So I will disagree with that. No human being can be free until every human being is free. Disagree. As long as I'm free, I don't care about anybody else. I champion those who are pushed to the margins so they may have an equal place at the table. No, I support those at the margins who want to have an equal place at the table. So I will disagree with that. That's the wording of these questions is nasty. Climate change and white supremacy are two sides of the same coin. Damn straight. No, it's not. Of course not. That's silly. Disagree. We have the most to learn from the people who are the most oppressed. No, I have the most to learn from the people who have unshackled themselves from being oppressed. So there we go. Lax immigration controls undermine our nation's national security and put a strain on our resources. Yes, that's true. We want the best and the brightest here. In a conflict, one should always amplify the voices of the marginalized so that they have equal representation. So this is the equal versus equality argument. Again, people are responsible for their own actions. I will disagree. Pointing out that other cultures don't have gay or trans rights is just another way of perpetuating the oppressive status quo. Disagree. That's like telling your kid the neighbor kid is much better than your kid, which is really not a bad way to raise your kids. If you let unproductive people think they're special, you are giving them an incentive not to improve. Absolutely correct. Yes. Science views the universe as a matter to be used in much the same way as white men view women and minorities as objects to be exploited. Disagree. I really don't like the way they're using white men as a shorthand. Very loaded. Since women comprise half of the world's population, it is only natural that women should possess half the world's wealth. Well, in divorce settlements, they do, but I disagree. Finished. I am slightly non-woke. Back to the studio.
The results conclusively showed that I'm slightly non-woke, which probably makes me persona non grata. I invite you to take the test. Link is in the description below, and send me a comment as to how woke you are. And that's the way it is.